Hello and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. I am here today to talk to you about Ethics, GS4 paper of the UPSC Mains examination. Now, all of you would be aware that it was only in 2013 that GS4 or Ethics became a part of the UPSC Mains syllabus. Since then, there are a lot of divergent views about this particular subject. A lot of people like it, thinking that they don't need to read a lot about in this particular topic and they can easily score good marks just by using their common sense, just by using their own knowledge that they have acquired over lives and their good answer writing skills. Are they correct? I would say partially. Then there are some other students who think that this is too technical of a topic for them to read and they don't know how to answer that. They think that whatever path that they choose in the case studies or in describing philosophers is usually not the right path. For them, I would like to tell them that they are wrong. It is not that this particular topic is a very complex topic. As the first half of the students told you, the truth is that this is a subject in which you don't have to study a lot as compared to the other subjects such as history, geography, economics, polity, etc. What you have to do is understand how you are as a person, understand how you would react in a certain situation, and what exactly are the proper responsibilities and duties of a civil servant. Additionally, if you cover the important philosophers and political thinkers, you should be good to go on your way to score very good marks in GS4, that is the ethics paper. In this video, we will be discussing about what exactly is the syllabus for ethics. What are the focus areas? Are there any specific books that we recommend for you? And also, what are the different types of questions that you see in ethics? Now, let's begin by first looking at the syllabus of ethics paper, that is GS4. It is not a very wide syllabus by any stretch of imagination. In the ethics paper, as per the UPSC notification, you have to cover the determinants and consequences of ethics in human actions. What are different dimensions of ethics, human values, reformers in administration, the role of family, society, education institutions, etc. These are the things that you should know even before you started preparing for the UPSC examination. Even before you started thinking about writing this examination, I am sure all of you would already be aware of what is an ethical behavior and what is an unethical behavior. I'm sure all of you even earlier were very aware of the role that society, family or education institutions play in inculcating values. So it is not something that is out of the blue or something that you're reading for the first time. But yes, before this, you might never have explicitly defined these things and now you're required to write them on the paper. This is the only difference between what you already knew and what you have to display in the GS4 ethics paper. You also have to read about attitude, the relationship with thought and behavior, moral and political attitudes, the social influence, the art of persuasion, is it good, bad, etc. Then we also have to read about the foundational values of civil service such as integrity, impartiality, objectivity, dedication to public service, etc. All these phrases and words might seem like very easy to define for you. For example, if I ask you what is integrity, mostly you will understand what is integrity and you know how to display it. But if I ask you to write the same thing on a piece of paper in a paragraph and explain to me what is integrity, what is impartiality, you might find it difficult to put the same thing into words. This is where the challenge lies. Because in the UPSC Mains examination, you will not be given marks for what you know or understand. You will be given the marks for what you can write on the paper and make the examiner understand. If you think that yes, I know what integrity is, I know what impartiality is, but sadly I can't define it well, that will not be of any good use to you. That is where you need to focus on this particular subject. Also, unlike some other papers like GS1, GS2, GS3, where you have multiple subjects, like in GS1, you have history, you have geography, you have Indian society. In GS2, you have polity, governance, international relations, social justice. In GS3, you have economics, you have science, you have environment, you have disaster management. all of those combined will get you 250 marks each. Over here in GS4, ethics alone will fetch you 250 marks. And that is why a lot of aspirants understand this in the very initial stage of their preparation and focus a lot on ethics. And I would suggest you to do the same thing. People understand that it is not very difficult to fetch very, very good marks in ethics, and that is why they put a lot of attention here as compared to some other students who think that ethics is just about writing what we already know. It is just about solving case studies. Yes, there are a lot of case studies in ethics, but there is a lot of technical knowledge that you also have to understand, and that is why there's a specific book and a specific syllabus that you have to follow if you have to score well in this subject. The syllabus also wants you to cover emotional intelligence, the role of emotional intelligence, which has been talked about quite a lot now. If you read the newspapers, and not just the newspapers, if you read the important business journals these days, there is a debate that amongst the leaders now, EQ, that is emotional quotient, is much more important as compared to IQ, that is intelligence quotient. Emotional intelligence is as much or even more important as compared to having technical knowledge. Then we have to read about the contribution of moral thinkers and philosophers from India and the world. For example, here you can expect questions from Socrates. You can also expect questions from Gautam Buddha. You can even expect questions from Mahatma Gandhi, etc. All of that will be covered here. Then you're also expected to know about your role and the expectations from a civil servant. Very, very important part of your syllabus. You will be reading about the status and the problems of public administrations, the ethical concerns and dilemmas that you read a lot about in the papers. Most of the case studies which are given to you in the GS4 paper are derived some way or the other from real life instances, so you have to be ready for that as the administrator. You'll also be reading about corporate governance, ethical issues in international relations, funding, moral values and governance. All of that will be covered in the GS4 syllabus. The syllabus also includes probity in governance, the concept of public service. For example, even in the interview and not just in GS4, one of the most common questions that you can expect from the board is, according to you, what are the 5 or 3 or 7 values that every public servant must have? And then they can ask supplementary questions from the answers that you are giving. So you have to be aware of what are the important values that a civil servant must have and examples related to those values. Don't just say one word, integrity, honesty, commitment to public service, etc. No. You have to imbibe those and make the other person understand what do you mean when you say devotion to public service. What do you mean when you say impartiality? What do you mean when you say integrity? All of these are very, very commonly asked. Then you will also be reading about the philosophical basis of governance and probity, code of ethics, citizens charter, very important. This is also covered in governance in GS2. In fact, the interesting part is that a lot of these things that you are reading about in ethics syllabus, many of them are covered in some other subjects as well. Like the concept of citizen charter, governance, good administration, a lot of it is covered in governance actually. So the syllabus of UPSC is not made in silos. It is actually complementary to each other, and a lot of subjects and subtopics actually override with each other, which is always beneficial for the aspirant. And then whenever you talk about ethics to anyone, the first thing that they say is case studies. Yes, you do have a lot of case studies as in the ethics paper. These case studies are based on the same topics which are mentioned in your syllabus here. All of that will be covered, and you have to be prepared with all of them, because the probability of getting very high marks in ethics is much, much higher as compared to the other GS papers, because this is just one specific subject that will give you the capacity to get scores out of 250. The one book that we do recommend from our side is, there's an ethics book written by 2 authors combined, Mr. G. Subbarao and Mr. P. N. Roy Chaudhary. You can take that book, and it has a lot of good case studies. It has a lot of good study material from whatever topic that we have to discuss. Now, if you actually see the GS4 paper, which carries 250 marks in all. This is the distribution that you usually see over the years. For example, in 2020, 2019, 2018, all these 3 years, about half of the paper was on case studies. So out of 250, you could see that 120 marks were actually allotted to case study, which is a kind of a common trend. That doesn't mean that you have to only focus on case studies, because even writing answers to those case studies requires a lot of technical knowledge about the terms that we discussed. Because the case studies are not random, they are based on those topics only. Then we also have public organizations, thinkers, which are also very heavily asked in the ethics paper. And I'll give you some examples as well. If you are pretty good with case studies and public thinkers, almost 3/4 of your paper is very, very good to go. And the remaining then is from concepts such as family and society, work and office, public organization, private organization, etc. Let me share with you a few examples of the questions that you can expect. In 2020, these were some of the questions. Case studies are too long to write, so I'm not writing them here. Apart from the case studies, these were the other kind of questions. For example, from thinkers, you had this question: what teachings of Buddha are most relevant today and why? Now, obviously, no book can teach you to write this kind of an answer. As long as you are aware about the teachings of Gautam Buddha that you would have read in ancient history also, in ethics also, you should be well prepared to answer these kind of questions. All that you have to use is your common sense and your art of answer writing. Similarly, we had a question: a system of morality which is based on relative emotional values is a mere illusion, a thoroughly vulgar conception which has nothing sound in it and nothing true, Socrates. A lot of times you will see that these kind of quotes that are given from philosophers and thinkers are not very straightforward. And that is why you have to read about these thinkers and philosophers in detail to understand the place from where they are talking and what message are they trying to give. Similarly, in 2019, these were the kind of questions. Emotional intelligence is the ability to make your emotions work for you instead of against you. Do you agree with this view? Discuss. Again, emotional intelligence is a part of your ethics syllabus, and if you would have read about this, you can easily answer these questions. Then, what do you understand by the term public servant? Reflect on the expected role of a public servant. As I said, one of the most common questions in ethics will always be this: the role of public servant, the values that a public servant would have, and a similar question can very easily be asked in your face-to-face personality test as well. These are the things that you must keep in mind while preparing for the Ethics GS4 paper of the UPSC Mains examination. I hope this session was very helpful for you. Thank you so much for watching.